Hello and welcome. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's Friday. It's April 16th, 2021. I want chips and I need a haircut. I am your grumpy guide to all things gaming, the OGGM, and it's time for another exciting episode of Game Master Ideas, where I toss out some ideas that either I've come up with or I've seen other people come up with and want to share with you. And sometimes there's things floating out there and people make them too complicated, and I try and break them down to make them as simple as possible. Usually ends up with me repeating myself a lot, but that's because I want to make sure people understand the idea. So today I want to talk about calendars and timers in your game. Now, the idea of calendars and timers is not new. It's existed as long as the game and even pre-existing D&D has been. I mean, if you go back to the very first iteration, you see where something happened once every 4 ticks or once every 4 rounds. So it's not a new concept. But there are new interesting ways to use timers and calendars that maybe in the past we hadn't thought of. So let's first start with, I think if you are telling a story in your game, you might want to have a game master calendar, especially since time is so wibbly wobbly in D&D. I mean, how long is time? Because we know there's like in 5th edition D&D, a ritual can take 10 minutes. But when a round is like 15 seconds, 10 minutes is like a year in a combat, because chances are the combat's going to be resolved in 20, 30 seconds. Meanwhile, the poor guy casting the ritual is like, I got 9 minutes to go. So yeah, time is very wibbly wobbly. It always has been wibbly wobbly in D&D. Some games do time a little bit better, but generally in our hobby and all the games, time is just kind of like, So let's say you're telling a story. Let's say you're, whatever else is going on in your game. Your story is, I want there to be an invasion. It's a simple one. The Mongol hordes or the orcs or the dragons or whatever are going to invade in a certain amount of time, days from when the game starts. Maybe there was a prophecy. We could use the comet prophecy. When the comet passes over the 2 moons of the silver strand trees and the dryad sings the song of the lake, the orc hordes, you know what I mean. Anyways. So game 1, minute 1, that's when you start the timer. And you know that X amount of days is when the invasion hits wherever you want it to hit. So, let's say 30 days, the invasion hits town or countryside. So they're 30 days away. But because time is so wibbly wobbly in D&D, how long is a day in D&D? I don't know. Is 30 days 30 game sessions, or is 30 days 30 long rests? Well, how long is a long rest in D&D? I don't know. It's very nebulous. So let's just say 30 days from now on the DN's calendar, the invasion hits wherever. Town. The invasion hits the town. Or the city, or the countryside. The invasion hits the countryside. It makes more sense. An 8 hour... In the old games, a rest period was 8 hours. Now a long rest is kind of it is 8 hours. Maybe it's 6 hours. Maybe it's 4 hours. We don't know. So let's say once every 2 long rests is a day. So if every time the party takes a long rest, mark off half a day on your calendar. Have a thing with 30 boxes on it. And the 30th box is invasion hits. Box 1 is timer starts. Every time they take a long rest, mark off half your box. So every 2 long rests is a box that's filled. So, So that means 16 long rests from now, 30 days, the invasion hits. So that's one way to do. You actually have a physical calendar and you mark it down. And it could also be used for it's going to take us 6 days to travel downriver to the city of Cityton. All right, I've got a calendar. I'm going to mark 6 days on here, and every time an actual day passes, I'm going to mark it on. And if you're using holidays and things like that, and you actually have this physical calendar, you could even go to the 99-cent store and get a calendar and use that. Or you could write one up. Then maybe, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I see according to the calendar, today is Stephen's birthday, or today is the solstice, or today is Christmas, or today is St. Paddington's Day, if that's a holiday in your world. So you could have these real world holidays marked down in your calendar, but you could also know, okay, 6 days travel. I'm going to mark 6 days, bam, 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 bam. Meanwhile, the 30-day timer. So calendars is one good way to get a timer. That way you as a DM have a general constant idea of how far the party has moved time-wise, what time of year it is, what the weather is like, how many days have passed. 60 days and the Lich will rise again from the dead. Whatever, 10 days from now, I have an earthquake planned. You just mark them down in your calendar, and then you just figure out, well, a day is probably too long rest. So, blam, 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 blam. There you go. So that's the first kind of, calendars are the first kind of timer. The second kind of timer is the one we're more familiar with. Every few rounds, something happens. The dragon can breathe his breath every 4 rounds. Every 4 rounds, there's another aftershock from the earthquake. Every 6 rounds, the guy can assume his werewolf form again. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. So whatever the number is, you want something to represent that timer. So get a dice or whatever, maybe one of those big giant novelty 6-siders that are like this big, and you just put it down right down the table so the players know the timer's ticking down. You could also use egg timers, Here's a 60-second egg timer. When this reaches 0, I flip it and something happens. I'm counting down from 6. You can see the dice is on 6. Bam, 5, bam, 4, bam, 3, bam, 2, bam, 1. Something happens, So that's the second kind of idea you can do with a timer. Using egg timers, using dice to mark down that, once every couple rounds, this is happening, or once every 3 rounds, this happens, or once every 5 rounds, this happens. The third type of timer is that you can use to make things more interesting is individual. This isn't really a timer. It's more like every 1 out of every 4 can do this special thing. And this works in like group fights. So let's say the party is fighting 30 goblins. 1 out of every 4 of those goblins is a ticker. So if 3 goblins are normal goblins, that 4th goblin, he's got something special going on. He's a goblin grenade. So he's a timer. So 3 goblins are doing normal goblin stuff. 4th goblin, 1 out of every 4 is a goblin grenade. So he's going to explode at a certain point in time. And so if you've got 30 goblins, 1 out of every 4 of those goblins is a goblin grenade, and the goblin grenades are going to randomly explode at a certain amount of time. So again, you could have a timer, you could have something ticking down, and then when the timer hits 0, you could use an egg timer, one of those noisy timer on your phone, you could use dice. When that timer ticks down, you pick 1 out of every 4 of the goblins, and he explodes. And wherever he is, that explosion goes off. And that means if he takes out some of his friends, great. If he takes out some of his enemies and his own buddies, whatever, he's a goblin. But it's a third type of timer. So the 3 timers so far that you could use in your game: calendar, actual timer to show, the idea of once every 4 rounds, the dragon gets to breathe its weapon. So I've got a timer. When it reaches 4, the dragon gets to reload, or whatever like that. Or once every 6 rounds, there's an aftershock. I'm counting down from 6. At 1, there's an aftershock. When this egg timer reaches, and then the third one is the tick timer. That when the timer hits 0, one member of this group gets to do something weird. So those are timers. Of those, I like the calendar idea the most, especially if you have the idea that somewhere in the future of my game, X is going to happen. And that's going to happen in 30 days. Okay? Because time is so wibbly wobbly in D&D right now, and in gaming in general. 30 days is kind of more like just sort of a vague concept than an actual amount of time. But if you actually have a physical thing showing the time being marked out, this is how far you've traveled. You took 6 long rests. This is how much time has passed. Okay, I'm sorry. whatever. If you can actually have a physical thing, and meanwhile this bad thing is slowly moving up, it gives you a general idea of where things are, where the party is, what's happening in the real world. Oh, the moon's going to be full tomorrow, you know. Oh, it's Susan's birthday. Oh, the river is going to flood. I have an earthquake planned. Put out all these things, you know. It's St. Paddington's Day, and it makes the game more interesting. The other one I like is the once every, you know, when the timer goes off, something bad happens. A goblin explodes, there's a poison, there's a whatever. That one's kind of fun too, you know. And just let the party see the timer. Always let the party see the timer, because it just builds up that dread that they know that something bad is going to happen when that egg timer hits 0, when the dice flips to 6. So they have that much time to try and prevent whatever it's going to be. So if you like these ideas, let me know. If you don't like these ideas and think I should shut the fuck up, let me know. Please like, please share, please subscribe, please support me by going out to DM's Guild and checking out my product, the Brazen Beastman of Billswater. Chapter 2 is going to be on its way pretty soon. Beastman beat down at Billswater. And I'm currently working on Chapter 3. So check out my adventures. And until then, the timer's ticking. What's going to happen at 0? Yeah, it's 0. Get off my lawn.